Pretty interesting. See what the differences are. Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I'm your host, DBJ. Had a little tech issue, so coming in slightly late for 5:30 a.m. on the Eastern Seaboard here in Eastern Time Zone. I'm sorry, here in Central Ohio. I hope the rest of you can join me here on this third pillar of exploration Thursday, in which one of my favorite subjects to talk about in tabletop role playing games, and that's the exploration pillar of gaming. The third pillar, with combat and social interactions being the first and second pillar, and then folding that into a whatever concept we're talking about for the week. Unfortunately, for the week represents WTF, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays, and this week we're talking about alcohol. Next week, I hope we can talk about the Eternals. I don't want to spoil anything, but the movie has been released and it is split right down the middle. And I find it fascinating that it is split right down the middle and what we could pull from it to improve our tabletop role playing game experience. Now, in this context, um, about the third. Hmm, about the third pillar of exploration, um, there are the word exploration and the concept of exploration in role playing games is very vast. It would be like trying to describe what action is in a role playing game. It's got a for many of us, the first thing that comes to mind is going to be very different for each of us, and how we can mix that in with our grain and grape discussion. Now, yesterday we I don't know. Um it was like mind fuel, the mind fuel express about so many different ways that we can incorporate alcoholic beverages and traditions and the development of those same things. And Dead Man brings up something that I hadn't quite thought about, and it's going to bring into this idea of exploring the environment when it comes to alcohols and such. Now, of course, um, alcohols are produced by fermenting sugar fibers, fibrous materials, and breaking those things down. So, of course, we have to get the materials together in order to create alcohols in the first place, whether that is very commonly, whether it's some types of wheat or rice, potatoes, rye, hops, grapes, so on and so forth, all kinds of fruits and such. And for better or worse, for taste and the various recipes, bitterness and sweetness and aging and all this kind of stuff, it's very important. But for our concept today, we're going to talk about the exploration, the environmental part of it. Now, of course, the base level of this would be for player characters to go on a mission to gather those supplies and or protect those supplies. So, and materials. So that might mean protecting a vineyard, or the PCs need to, they may live in prohibition era fantasy Dungeons and Dragons and have to transport alcohol maybe across borders in which maybe those alcoholic beverages are not wanted or needed or desired, or it taking it literally on its face value. Lots of people consider yeah. Um, um, Lots of people consider alcohol to be the nectar of gods, and in many ways, alcohol has been used throughout history as everything from a sedative to a curative to a to something that's a purifier. To you can't drink regular water because of all the contaminants, but we can drink alcohol and it keeps us alive, and then therefore that's translated into something divine. It could be the other way around. Hey, everybody, I'm your number 37th god of purifying liquids. Drink alcohol, please, and you will survive, right? That may be a thing. Yeah, Dead Man, Dead Man brings up the fact. This is why I wanted to talk about the Eternals, too. So let's do that next week. Because it says Rotten Tomatoes gave Eternals a 47% critic score and an 83% audience score. Yeah, there's always been. I know this isn't the channel for talking about movies, and I mean we always do it, but it's we don't really talk about movies on the show in terms of like analyzing them and whatnot in terms of our opinions, but uh, for the most part, critics and audiences are pretty close together. When they aren't, it's always like critics are wrong and the audiences are right, or the opposite way, right? And and that I find is pretty fun to talk about and to embrace. I saw the movie and I both give it a high score and completely understand why somebody else would give it a low score. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Rickard? Go in there. Yeah, now Dead Man brings up the fact that Exalted has a few gods that revere alcohol. And it may mechanically, it may be necessary for player characters to for various peoples to consume alcohol in divine respect. I think something that it's pretty ridiculous, I think, in games where we bring up atheism in fantasy games where the gods exist, right? There would be no such thing as atheism. But I think what we miss is the nuance of there is space in between. It's not that people worship the gods, it's that they accept them as these vast celestial beings that have personalities, and if you don't respect those personalities you could get struck down. It's the concept of the sailors and sea captains, maybe tossing a coin over the ship to gain favor with Neptune so that their ship doesn't get lost at sea, right? And it's not, you know um humanity may give up middle fingers and say F you, Apollo or whoever, Ares, and a bunch of other these gods, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean they worship them. Maybe they just think they're a bunch of you know, interplanar or extraplanar a-holes. So that may be a thing. And so drinking alcohol may be to revere a particular god or godling or divinity or avatar or any monsters or whatever, as a method of appeasing them just to get it over with, right? And this may not be a forced thing. People get together in a tavern, start singing bawdy songs, and they go and they the alcoholic beverages like, hey, and here's a drink to Satirus, the satyr of partying, or something like that, Pan or something, fey creatures or whatever, and they drink to celebrate them and maybe even invite them for favor and whatnot. And this may be a real thing where maybe fey creatures approach and they're like, oh, people are partying, let's party with them. And the humanity is like, sure, party with us, till everyone's like, we got to go to work tomorrow. And the fey creatures are like, we don't. So yeah, let's keep on going. And there may be other things as well, whether drinking alcohol has not only been for parties, but for somber occasions. Someone passes away, you pour one out for the person that passed away, and it's so on and so forth, right? And could be very well be a thing. Hey, Rickard. Rickard says, but are they gods or are they people with power? I mean, a lot of the D&D pantheon used to be mortals after all. True, and honestly, and this is a slight segue. This isn't a spoiler to Eternals, but it does bring up the concept of like, just because something or someone is vastly more powerful than you doesn't make them perfect or omnipotent or brilliant at all in any concept, right? Most Dungeons and Dragons and mythological figures aren't capital G gods, if that makes sense. They aren't God. They are essentially powerful beings, far powerful than we could be, and still very. I think the better way to think of it is that they are the concept of the universe only reflects with them in their domain, and everything else just doesn't matter to them. That's how I look at it. Like, it's not that they're smart. It's just that if you're a godling of the domain of fire, then you expect your worshipers to worship fire. And Never mind the fact that it might be smart for, say, one of your worshippers to snuff out a fire so they can hide from enemies. The god of fire is like, "What are you doing? Don't snuff out any of my fires. You're supposed to keep my fires stoked." And the godling's like, and the worshipper's like, "But we would die." And the godling's like, "I don't understand what you're saying. Keep my fires going, or else." Right? And I look at it kind of like that. Anyway, Dead Man says in Exalted, what a bucket of dice game. Anyway, in Exalted, a common plot point in PCs versus gods, with the expected outcome being the god getting a smackdown. Without, yeah, with the expected outcome, yeah, Exalted. Yeah, well, the player characters in the first generation of Exalted, they were like demigods anyway with their powers and stuff. Bucket of the game, they should have just called it Exalted Bucket o' Dice, not bucket of dice, bucket o' dice. All right, so um, travel to distant regions either to protect or collect or acquire rare or valued alcohols, uh, or even to arrive to have said drinks or something could be pretty important. And again, I still love the idea of complicating player characters' lives, whether it's protecting goods and services, protecting individuals who are the ones who make the recipes to make the alcohol. Um, if the alcohol has been bottled and collected together, its its fragility may be important in terms of getting from A to B. And of course, we also have to have, not only do we have the larger parts of alcohol, like the rice or potatoes, or rice, potatoes, rye, sugarcane, et cetera, barleys and things like that, and much more, um, used in alcohol. But there's also the minor things. Like yesterday, someone brought up bronze, that copper is common, but bronze isn't because of the tin involved. And many alcohols require minute but very specific types of like spices and treatment, things like that, that it might be that, sure, this countryside has vast vineyards, but we need I don't know, vanilla or chocolate or something that might be extremely rare. And so the player characters, sure, they could put it in their pocket, but it's very important for them to travel far distances to acquire one thing and bring it back. And as a matter of fact, even in our own human society, there have been things that uh, there are various foods and vegetables and things of that nature that were never seen in one community, and then brought over to another community. Things like potatoes and corn, and again, vanillas and chocolate, and those kind of things, rices and such, uh, or the breeds that they are. Like grapes have different kinds of specialty breeds. Rickard's like, they are only the god of fire as long as they control the fire portfolio. Okay, if I take it, I am now God. That's true. Hey, no one's looking. I guess hey, someone left this on the shelf. I guess it's mine. Anyway, Rickard says, so I can see how atheism could work. There are powerful beings, but they are not gods. Or, well, true, and of course, it, it, it's the idea of they're not, how do you explain this? That no one can prove whether they are or aren't to you or them, right? It's like, I'm super powerful, and then people could say, well, you're just a human being who acquired this power. But if somebody else is like, well, that's blasphemous, then it's like, well, how do you prove it? There would be no way to prove it. Although you would have people would have to know or believe that the gods themselves were once mortal at one point, rather than being born in a world where they've always existed and not knowing it, right? Um, well, Rickard says, and who wouldn't want to hold the portfolio of partying and feasting? Yeah, yeah. Sure. In classic Dungeons and Dragons, we have like, it's like, um, the gods of life and darkness and death and like these big things. But I think the ones that probably would have more, there would be more default, would be like partying, hearth and harvest and the more social aspects, right? Because people would deal with each other more in a social aspect than player characters that are out there adventuring, the god of magic. And it's like, yeah, they'd have the god or gods of magic would have more loyal followers, but god of alcohol, people publicly they might not say that they're into it, but privately they're less like, um I'm pretty sure they'd have a lot of it's like the prohibition area here in the US. It's like everyone's like, no, I don't drink. And behind the scenes, everybody's drinking. Uh, now, th- based on the mythology of your world, there may be extremely rare um, alcoholic beverages that the player characters may need to acquire, meaning like those bottles or barrels or casks or whatever might be the treasure to acquire to achieve greathood or something of that nature, right? It might be a test as well. So instead of like a classic dungeon or crypt or something, there may be a series of tests to explore a region, to go through many trials in order to have a drink with a powerful entity or a noble or rich merchants or um, it, such as like Hercules tests, right? There might be 12 challenges and you have to go across the vast desert and trudge through the swamp and climb the highest mountains. And once you're there, you could drink with the rest of us, you know, who are living on a higher plane of Olympia or something of that nature. And then when the players get there, they're like, all I get is a drink? And they're like, no, the point was to travel. The point wasn't actually do. The point wasn't to get here. The point was to actually was to learn everything along the way or something like that. Dead Man says, like the movie Gods of Egypt. Ooh, what a that's a that's a I don't want to say it's a deep cut. That's a side cut. Anyway, like the movie Gods of Egypt, the young man gets Horus Eye at one point and gains his eternal sight. Yeah, what a very strange movie for them to try to explain to other people. I didn't think it was as I didn't think it was the dumpster fire most people thought it was, but it was pretty interesting. I once I embraced the concept of what Gods of Egypt was about, I was like, this that's not too bad. Giant sized individuals in mechanized suits, and it's pretty weird. Rickard says, if number of worshippers equals power, yeah, Dionysus and Bacchus, I believe, I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, Dionysus and Bacchus would be super powerful. Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Just the idea of people oh, without any fanfare or something, people who are just like, hey, we want great food, protect our homes, protect our families, our community, and guess what? On the weekends, a couple of good drinks and party and just to be cheerful or something after a hard day's work. Of course, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. That's why. What was it in Game of Thrones? The house, High Garden, was the noble house that controlled the food, the the harvest and fed everybody. And of course, they were powerful. It may not be sexy, but yeah, it's quite awesome. I think that the the idea of powerful beings we don't often incorporate and I understand why, but we don't often incorporate extremely powerful beings telling our player characters, our main characters, what to do to achieve something. More often than not, it's more or less like take down the power structure. But I could see in alcohol infused community that it's not about taking down a power structure. It could be a social challenge to a power structure, but I could see them the instead society embraces a thing rather than trying to take the thing down. Like for example, it may yes, players never want to get caught in the fey court and be hypnotized and mind controlled, right? That's the very worst thing you want to do to player characters, which is why there's like a top five never. Um, on paper it sounds good, but in play it doesn't sound good. And one of those things is taking away player agency. And taking away player agency is doing things like long-term illusions, hypnotism, and hypnotism and hypnosis, and affecting their minds and things. And fey creatures do that. But on the other hand, it would be far more interesting for player characters to willingly go into, say, a fey court to party and to drink, and they need to carouse to be gifted the gift of like a cask of alcohol to bring back to humanity and bring back to the physical world. And the fey creatures are like, nah, you got to come with us. And maybe there's like drinking games involved, and all kinds of debauchery and ridiculousness and whatnot. They're just like, there's an owl bear, let's wrestle it naked. The PCs are like, I'm gonna get my ass kicked. We do that, and the fake creatures are like, "Come on, do it," you know. And how many drunken uh truth dare or consequence actions have happened for good and for the most part bad over a drink, right? Another thing is, let's go to the poor drink out for the fallen. I mean, maybe in the world there is power in that, in the sense of going to, whether it is you actually have a cemetery of some sort, or there's a place to give honor to the dead and to pour one out for them. And maybe there's a thinning of the membrane to the living world and the dead world, and the player characters, like, they don't need magic, they're second level, but they want to go and speak to or even bring back their fallen comrade. Maybe it's a, hey, they go to the local religious chapter, or they speak to their grandmother or something, and she says, take this bottle, and there's a drink, and on the third day when the moon's at its highest point, or whatever the case may be, um, pour your friend and yourself a drink, and yes, and beseech the powers so you can cross over something. And maybe it just might be pretty simple, like, hey, okay, our comrade fell, many months ago, but I still feel him, and pour a drink out, and maybe the player characters pass out, but their spirits go into another world with, the same character, stats and whatnot. And then they go and they find their friend that's in another world, and they go to another plane of existence, and they bring him back, and they bring his spirit back. And they're just like, you could have a lot of fun with exploring like how things are, like, especially if the player characters have traveled very far. Maybe there are other cultures, this is more social, but there are other cultures they deal with, and over alcoholic beverages, or mixing around them, or maybe even communities that have refused to use them, prohibition style, and or religious style. And it's like, well, why? And ex- there may be very legitimate reasons why, either they don't use them, or they use them for particular reasons, like, communities that don't drink alcohol for pleasure, but they do for um, very serious and somber festivities, like, for example, like coronations or births or graduations, and the giving of titles or exchange of land and property, marriages and things of that nature. And it might be extremely important that those functions aren't blessed unless a particular type of alcohol is used, or particular type of social constructs are done. The eldest gets to drink first, and then we do think like stereotypical Japanese uh, tea, pouring of tea or something, or sake or whatever. And if you don't honor an individual, or you don't at least refuse twice before you take a drink, or whatever the case may be. Heck, even the idea of, I know this has come from a number of sources, but I'm going to say it out loud because it's in my head, that someone who is invited in your home is given protection for 3 days if they were to take a drink. And I know there's something related to that, both in Middle Eastern culture. I know there's something related to that in like a um, like Persian culture, or maybe they had to do with salt in the food. Or anyway, it's a complicated mess of a number of ideas in my head, and I know they're pulled from various real world cultures and fantasy cultures, but there may be something of that nature where the player characters are like, okay, they offered us a drink. We cannot have any violence in their home. We take the drink, and literally mechanically, you can't take any violent action. Oh yeah, you can sneak around and steal stuff and intimidate people, but you can't take any violent action. The PCs are like, oh, okay, well, how do we get away from that? Oh, the old hag, but we need to go around her, her chicken legged hut, and we've got 3 days to do it before she unleashes holy hell on us. But we can't do the same thing to her and her minions or something. So now let's run around her, her eternal, infinite inside the hut. Baba Yaga's place to find the thing, the bottle of the thing, to get the thing. Um, Also, baby, there's alcohols that prevent something from happening. Like maybe people are imagine if there's drinks that prevent people from succumbing to lycanthropy, and these people that live in this community, maybe the person that was they've always been drinking it for generations even, and no one's and it's been so long that people have been drinking so much that in the past they would drink this to make sure that they don't change or transform, but now it's just pretty much legend. And then all of a sudden the alcohol dries up and they actually start transforming, and the PCs are like, okay, we're going to have to go up to the mountainside to get those berries that are dangling off those cliffs, 1,000-foot cliffs, to get at least a couple of drinks in these people, because all of them are turning super dangerous, and mutating and whatnot. That may be a thing. Also the classic ogre that wants to steal the alcohol from the local population, maybe shove a cow under a keg under one arm and a cow under the other arm, and steal it and walk off into the distance. It is a very common thing as well. So Ricker's like, it's a chicken legged hut. It's just to add at the thing, the thing, or go Ewok on it. Problem solved. Go Ewok on it. People forget Ewoks defeated their enemies, ate their flesh while they were alive, and then decided to play bongos with their severed heads. Just think about that. Mm, Sure, they could have just been empty helmets, but I like to think that they made those sounds with the hollowed out brains of their enemies. Let's think about that for a minute. All right, we're done. We're done thinking about the ridiculousness of that. All right, now, let's go to man. A lot of times when I talk about exploration, and I don't mean to do this, I talk about yeah, yeah, yeah. Ewoks were very brutal. Oh yeah, they're like the meanest dog breeds you can think of, like pit bulls. They wag their tails and are all happy, but they like to eat living flesh while it's alive. Didn't they expect Han Solo and the rest of them to like scream out in pain while they're being cooked? Maybe the Ewoks were like, "Yay! The louder screams, the better it tastes." And the kids are like, "Yeah, yeah, woocha." Anyway, um, thanks, there, Rickard. Squirrel. Anyway, it would be pretty interesting to have like the man-made physical exploration location rather than natural. Like I talk a lot about like swamps and deserts and mountains and oceans and things of that nature, but and exploration involves the environment, and the environment is no matter where you go, there you are, right? And so where the player characters may have to go to a distillery or warehouse or some place of that nature, it may be important that to not disturb what's going on or not destroy it, or like a classic warehouse when you have things piled high, at least one person's going to knock over those carefully stacked barrels of alcohol. I mean, wine cellars are another thing, right? Yep. I mean, that may be a thing, and having an adventure in and around those locations could be a bit memorable. you know, especially if there are, of course, we're talking about fantasy. You could turn the volume up a little bit. You could turn it to 11 if you really want to. And you could literally have a classic air quote dungeon that's just a big giant wine cellar, empty rooms, packed rooms. Maybe there are um, uh, subterranean like trolls and ogres or something hired to move to put the barrels and stack it up to the 12th and 13th and 14th level because no one can reach up that high and lift them up and put them up there with gnomes using pulley systems and I don't know, dwarves dragging them behind them, having fun and drinking and whatnot. And yes, you could hide and travel around and in and out of the wine cellar while of course somebody's going to have to open one up and get a couple of drinks and whatnot. There might be carefully written notes to please do not enter this area. Of course people are going to ignore that, and so on. Rickard's like, they took out the rebel forces on the moon and the imperial forces as well. Yeah, the Ewoks, they not given as much respect as as you would think if it wasn't for the Wu-Chai. Yeah. Rick says, uh-oh, like a district-wide vineyard? I could see, you know what? Why wouldn't, all right, why not travel in and out and through a vineyard? Yes, vineyards and orchards have carefully corralled and manicured locations where all the things line up, but it also can be maze like as well as extending far be a space far beyond what we know. And there's like cover and you could get confused in them. I could see the classic minotaur that can't get uh, that never gets lost in a maze might be tending a really large vineyard, and the minotaurs or the minotaur or minotaurs might be pretty upset for player characters bringing all their drama into the vineyard. So you might have a triangle of of conflict where the players are going after something that's in the vineyard and the minotaurs are like, get out, wanting to beat people about the head and shoulders with a couple of clubs because they don't want to kill you. They just want you to get the hell out the vineyard because you're ruining all their stash and stuff. And yeah, Rickard says fireball plus keg warehouse equals yep, equals nope. Don't do it, mate. Don't you dare. Yeah. Someone's definitely listen, if you have a wine cellar or a keg warehouse or whatever, someone's going to set it on fire. Someone's going to dump everything on the ground like it's going to like topple over and roll and crush people. You're definitely going to have someone who's going to like get to the top of it and like push one barrel like or the classic back against the barrel, feet against the wall, pushing until it falls over. But there's a reason why you see that in like movies and television and stuff because it's a trope, but it's fun. It's the rope bridge trope, right? It's like, yeah, it's fun. And let players do that, or hell, let the bad guys do that. Why not? And yes, if somebody sets it on fire, oh my god. But here's the other thing too: the social penalty for allowing something like that to happen might prevent. Well, no, that's not going to prevent player characters from starting a fire. Not at all. But it is a good way to punish them for doing it, even though they're going to do it in the first place, right? Setting alcohol on fire. Wait, players with a fireball. It's like giving the players a nuke. They're going to set it off, no matter how dangerous or unwanted it is. But okay, whatever. Consequences. Who cares? There's always more where that came from. Michael Marin says, was going to say, as a DM, I have to be aware of how flammable my environments are at all times. Oh, yes, I roll there. The first question is going to be, is there very flammable alcohol here? No. The first question from your players will be, tap, tap, tap. Or the Dungeon Master said, can I light this on fire? You're like, no, it's the Arctic North. Can I light this on fire? It's the desert. Player character's like, we're in a wine cellar, right? Dungeon Master, don't. But why not? Come on. Now, here's the other thing. Player character sets it on fire. Another hazard. starts to spread, maybe get smoky. You're down in the deep dungeons, maybe the choking little hazards there. Sorry, dark vision, don't work in smoke. Um, the fire starts to spread, and the PCs have to run through the fire, maybe to rescue someone or find something or get that extremely valuable bottle of wine that's in the wine cellar of the rich noble before it goes up. Maybe the fire draws a bunch of unwanted and unnecessary attention, and maybe it'll definitely draw maybe the authorities or monsters or something. And so there's a lot of stuff that could happen. So yeah, Michael Mayer says a vineyard does make for decent head height obscuring terrain. Exactly, particularly if the players are hesitant to destroy the crop. And the the equally opposing, put your head up to see above the vineyard, let's say, duck head down to remain hidden kind of thing. Or hey, PCs, if you're a medium height humanoid and you stand up high, you can see above it. But if you're small, you can't. But if you're small, you get the half cover. But if you're tall, you don't, or whatever, right? You could play with that a little bit as well. And be pretty fun. Also, something I love to bring up, uh, something I love to bring up quite a bit is, um, oh yeah, I saw it, Ricker. One of the things I love to bring up is s- uh, sight and awareness specific mechanics in role playing games. What I mean by that is like evocation spells might require you to see your enemy. Healing spells might require you to see your allies. If you're in a vineyard and everyone's run off on their own, maybe you know of where they're at. You can hear them. There's clashing. There's conflict. But if you can't see them, you can't target them for good or bad. So yeah, Rickard's like, wait, they ask you? No, they don't ask you. Yeah, yeah, they don't. Yeah, they don't. They just go light it on fire. Yeah, you're fine there, Rick. I got it. Yeah, yeah, they don't ask you. They just light it on fire. Mike Marin says smoke in the cellar with barrels sounds great. The more you talk about it, the more I'm convinced I have to do a vineyard based session now. Yeah, and listen, again, my contention about exploration is i- you're not going to run out of it. So I get we want to. I'm going to segue slightly here because something just came to my mind, and maybe we can do. Maybe I might even give homework or something because next week we have to talk about the Eternals, but at some point we have to talk about the unwritten rules in role playing games, and one of those that just comes to mind is killing your darlings as a world creators, and we all suffer from world creators disease. We have to understand that the only reason we're creating it is because our player characters are going to destroy it. Period. It's just a thing. We know from 40 plus years of gaming that that China player characters are bull equals bull in China shop destruction. Right? That's just a thing. That's just what they do. And so a lot of times, a lot of people get upset with their when their worlds are burned down, and it's like, yeah, but I mean, did you expect something else? And maybe we didn't. We don't write that in. We don't really even see that written into rules anywhere. Like, hey, remember when you create your world, we talk about leaving space for players. We don't talk about the fact that you're a props person on a movie set for them to light a car on fire and drive at 80 miles an hour through the prop you just spent 3 weeks painting to look like a real building or something like that, right? Yes, that's my side note. Anyway, Rickard says it's a great way for players to spend gold, given the amount of collateral damage they're likely to have to pay for inflicting it. Yeah, and like Mike Marin is saying, listen, if you have a world where you have a vineyard and wine cellars and parties, and the players go destroy it all, so what? There's more. There's going to be more. Maybe they have to rebuild it. Maybe the players leave and they go, not our fault. Will the society will rebuild it, and so what? You've got more mountains and deserts. You've got more clock towers and bridges and all that kind of crap, sewer systems. So what? Let them have it. Um, who cares? Mike Mayer says it's less like painting or writing, yeah, and more like creating a car to be driven. Yeah, monsters exist to be slain. Yep, vaults exist to be opened. The world is created to be changed. Hell's yeah. Let's see. How can I steal this without you finding out? Hmm. No, absolutely. Yeah, it's more like a car. It's like it's made to be driven, and you got to put oil in it, and hell yeah, literally. Wait, let me. You got to get the slow clap on that, dude. Yeah, it's it is much less like painting and writing, and unfortunately, in the RPG community, we kind of consider it. We we classify it as literature because of how close we are to it. We writing RPGs is very much, it follows literary rules, and most literature lasts for a long time. We all want to be the next Shakespeare. We want to be the next Brandon Sanderson. We want to be the next, you know what I mean? We want to be the next J.R.R. Tolkien or George R.R. Martin or something. But RPGs are no, not really. They're made to be destroyed. Yeah, monsters are made to be slain. Don't get attached to them. That vampire lord you spent a lot months building, probably gonna die. Probably. Rickard says, vineyard owner. Okay. I need to hire some adventurers to deal with the monsters that are infesting the vineyard and killing me crops. Sorry, I gotta say it with the attitude. I need to hire some adventurers to deal with the monsters that are infesting the vineyard and killing the crops. Vineyard insurance agency? Oh no, hell, oh hell no, you don't. Well, why not? We talked about that yesterday about having people like the player characters need to protect the vineyard. What a great zero level first level adventure. Hey, your job is to protect vineyard. You have maybe three or four interactions in the vineyard. Maybe there are commoners sneaking in and kids having fun, drinking and having and hiding out in the vineyard, and the PCs have to scare them away. Maybe those same kids that are hiding in the vineyard get hunted because there are kegs that are digging up from the ground to eat the grapes or something, and they have to defeat the kegs or the fire beetles. What's another classic low level monster? Giant spiders or something. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe those same minotaurs that are in the vineyard, the PCs are like, nope, hands on hips. We've been hired. You guys have to leave. And the minotaurs are like, we're not leaving till we get our last paycheck. This is bullshit. It might be a union, a fight between the unions and all that. I don't know. That'd be pretty silly, but why not? Why not a vineyard insurance agency, and the player characters are on top of it? And like I said, this might be kind of comedic a little bit, or at least put some smiles on faces. And why the hell not? Why not? Now I think the like we talked about the caravan concept, a very common thing. Protect the caravan of wet goods and dry goods to get it from A to B. That may be very important. Um, as well as adding in that time factor. Maybe the player characters, there's a great wedding or coronation or something. The player characters have to get the alcohol to the party, get the champagne to pour the big champagne glass tower. That's a very common thing to see. That may be a thing as well. Maybe the player characters have to they are part of they are hiding as servants in a major party. They have to go down in a wine cellar to get the alcohol to bring it upstairs to serve the party, and that in it of itself might draw people into it. Player characters needing to get very social, sneak around, maybe the great campus of a powerful noble, and this might give them access to it. Of course, they have to go down into the lower reaches where you have the wine cellar, and that might be very important as well. Maybe getting people inebriated to get some information out of them might be quite important. So making sure that like learning which fantastical individuals from which different lands drink certain alcohols to get them wasted. When the Medusa gets a little drunk, and she starts really feeling one of the player characters. And it's like, please, lady, keep your mask on at the masquerade ball. And she and you know and she's inebriated enough not to be violent, but also inebriated enough to really want to feel one of the player characters. How fun would that be? Like, she's here to parlay and have some fun. Or maybe one of the player characters can really cut a rug on the dance floor, and something. I don't know. You can have some fun with it. Anyway, this is more social than the exploration part, but who cares? Rickard says it might sound like a good idea until the players have burned down half the vineyards, killed the head farmhand, and covered your mansion in monster blood. That took a dark turn. Although I'm sure it's happened plenty of times. Yeah, that man brings up Acquisitions Incorporated. I haven't listened to that in a long time. Anyway, Acquisitions Incorporated, an adventuring group created by the creators of Penny Arcade. Yep, absolutely. Acquisitions Incorporated does fit into that category of creating a business. And also, along with we have spell components, we have crafting rules in various games. Hey, right above my head, the Level Up Advanced 5th Edition has been released, and there are crafting rules in within the rules themselves, including necessary components to create magic items and such. Like, for example, um, some of the required materials needed to make and craft magical concoctions and things are situational, but some of them could be just gathering components. Alcohols require components. The two might be related very well. Like, for example, who's to say that healing potions and alcohols are completely two different things? They might be one and the same of a sort in terms of healing potions in your world might only be from a rare group of grapes that are in a particular vineyard. PC's burned down vineyard. This world has no more healing potions, at least for this season. And and PCs might be like, wait, what? We burnt. Wait, you mean there's no more healing potions? Nope, you burned the vineyard down. And PCs might be like, wait, seriously? No, yeah, that's your fault. You mean we can't go buy healing potions? Nope, they don't exist anymore till somebody replants, till next season or 2 seasons from now when those grapes regrow in the vineyard. And guess what? The price just quadrupled. Yeah, yeah. Like Rickard says, that sounds like something the PCs might do. Yeah, why not have like just because something exists in a book, like in a gaming book, meaning like, oh, there's access to spells, there's access to magic items, there's access to the resurrection store or something. In our own worlds, we can create we have the ability to create um uh what am I thinking of? I'm thinking of scarcity. That's what I'm thinking of. There can be we can create artificial scarcity because in the real world we do have there are scarce elements in fantasy realms, meaning like it's possible, for example, I don't know. Rice might be very scarce if to the south of the world rice doesn't exist, but it does exist northern. Within that community, it might be ubiquitous. They don't think of anything of it. Of course, we've got wheat and grains and barleys, and we make alcohol. But to everyone else, it might be extremely rare, and that's why trade happens in the first place, right? You have a good that you have plenty of, and you trade it with people where you don't have it, like the Silk Road, like the triangle of Africa, Europe, Caribbean, all those kind of things. I mean, there was a reason for that. And in this world, maybe that is a real thing. Um, maybe there are the alcoholic beverages that everyone loves so much are rare, and that's a good thing because maybe the nobility, maybe they're the only ones who can afford to pay people to travel the distances to collect it or the materials to collect it. And let's not forget about the individuals who are the recipe makers. Just like a great cook or a carpenter or leather worker or weaver or whatnot. Entertainers. Some people are just very skilled at a thing, and just as much as we place value on painters and dancers and singers and artists, so too can we and we should put some emphasis on the value of people who make food and drink. You know, there's a reason why people spend more money to go to high-end restaurants, because there is literally a chef, probably with their name on the door, that's like, I make the food here. And other people say, yes, I am willing to pay you great amounts of money to eat your food, not just anybody's food, but your food. And the same goes for drink. Alcoholic beverages range from, you know, a few coins and paper bills in your pocket, all the way up to multi-million-dollar Sotheby traded bottles of alcohol that only, you know, where there's only one in existence. And the person or peoples who made that, yeah, the heck, what is it, wine, European wines, many in many ways are named after the regions in which the grapes are harvested, and that's where the names come from. Um, and I think here in the United States, they're named similarly because the tastes are the same, but it's not because the grapes come from the same place. But anyway, that might be a thing as well. Like, oh, to the north and south, east and west all have wines, but they are of different values and purposes. Like the northern wines um, are always used at the end of life. So just as winter hits and it becomes the end of a season before spring, northern wines are always drunk at during destructive elements, deaths, um, executions, um, exiles, things of that nature. Maybe that's when it's drunk, and that's the only time that it's acquired. But maybe to the south, the south is during summertime when the sun is at its highest, and you know, whatever the case may be. And so mixing and matching them, and of course we can add mechanical effects to that, whether that means the player characters have access to specific kinds of magic, or are able to buy things on the open market. So yeah, player characters burning down vineyards and then finding out that there literally is a world impacting effect on it. Of course, that's what consequences are. Um, Lastly, I will say that when it comes to the exploration part, like, of course, you're not going to have modern day, what is it, the stainless steel vats that they make micro brews out of, because we're talking about wine, but beer has a lot to do with beer and grog and whatnot. And the idea that maybe there's a vast warehouse where you do have these giant chambers that are distilling the yeast and the hops, and you see like twisty tubes and things being, you know, materials being boiled and mixed and whatnot, and that could be extremely fun to navigate around. I'm sure probably dwarves and or gnomes, or maybe gnomish dwarves, or dwarven gnomes, um with mixed heritage or something, or their culture might be very involved in creating these giant warehouses where they are boiling and distilling, and you know, off in the corner, of course, there's a ton of like wheat or potatoes or rye or barleys and hops and things that are tons and tons of it, you know, stacked up, because it's going to be there. It's like a factory, and there's people working, and you could have claws that grab things to lift things to somewhere else. You can have these big boiling pots of hot liquid that need to pour, or things are poured into them. There could be blades inside, like mixing blades that are turning things. And if you're going to have all that, you have to have the danger of falling into, stumbling against, having something drop on your head, um, all those kind of things. Maybe steam gets blasted out every 1d4 rounds that like blinds everyone with a big fall cloud. Maybe the player characters or the enemies might want to push the PCs into one of those spinning bladed tubs or something, that's like churning up the boiling mead or whatever. I don't know how alcohol is made, beers are made, but in a microbrewery. But turn the volume up to 11. In my opinion, that's how it's done, right? And the player needs to get the heck up out of the boiling pot because they're suffering like heat damage, but it's not really on fire. And then there's like claws that are lifting up heavy bits of like yeast and sugars and spices and grains and whatnot, and maybe somebody's cloak gets caught up in one of those claws and gets dragged away. um why not? Why not have that? And then, of course, let's not forget intelligent species that would love to drink themselves some alcohol, but they aren't human. Giant kind, PC could hide inside of a, I don't know, a cloud giant's goblet before they fill it up with some alcohol or something. Let's see. Okay. I'm not sure the reference here. Okay. Deadman says like Chef Vulcan Batok, the famous meta celebrity chef in Prix Fix from the Eclipse Phase anthology series After the Fall. I am not familiar with that. I haven't read all the material like the anthology series, but yes, if there is a meta celebrity in your world that, for example, let's say there's a celebrity chef in your world, and they will only make this meal because there's only a specific drink that goes with it. Like they don't make the drink, but they know there's a drink that goes with it, and they're like, "I'm not, the celebrity chef. I'm not making anything. I need to have the proper ingredients." They fold their arms and sit down, and the nobles are like, "Oh my god!" And they're falling over all over themselves, and they tell the PCs, "Listen, you need to go up to Olympus, or you need to go to the outer planes, go to the celestial worlds, and go collect some grapes because we need to get this wine made." And he's not going to serve it because, and listen, and it has to be aged. So you need to steal a bottle from the upper planes. And what a great fun, although hell, stealing a bottle of alcohol from the lower planes. Damn, what would have you drink that? But my point being is that you could make this a high level adventure where they have to get the thing, and you, like, it doesn't even matter if a player's like, well, couldn't I just make an illusion of it? They're like, nope, they'll know the difference. You got to actually go down in the nine hells, go to the plane of dis. I always pronounced it D. But anyway, go to the plane of Dis in the cold regions because that's where it's chilled, and get it out of the Arctic wastelands of all the dead souls frozen under the ice or something, with ice demons, ice devils. Like, what are you doing? And like, we got to get this bottle back to Earth because of the celebrity chef, and the ice devils like, oh, I know who that is. Can I come? I'd love to have a meal, and they bring it back and stuff. That'd be kind of fun. That'd be kind of silly too, but also would be rather fun. I mean, heck, even the idea of like giants, like hill giants and fire giants, frost giants, and things like that. Maybe they have a particular blend, or maybe they're running low on their own hops and they need some. They're like Vikings or something, Viking esque. Like, oh, we're not coming to war. We're coming to steal your alcohol. And PCs are like, oh, you want to get our alcohol? Fine. Let's see who's got the best drink. And they're just like, oh, yes, let's arm wrestle for it and whatnot. There's a bunch of ridiculous things that people do when inebriated. And what a great way to have like some of your monsters, like the naked owlbear wrestling, and the lots of tests of strength and endurance and swimming and balance and climbing might be involved. Maybe there's also the idea of expanded awareness, the idea of the mind and intelligence and concepts of cosmic awareness because you're drunk, right? No one's really got an answer, but everybody believes they are. Similarly to getting high and smoking weed, things like that. But maybe this is a thing. Lastly, talking about getting high and smoking weed, uh, although a hard segue, there is the idea of like men's clubs where it's the whiskey or the brandy, and you're also smoking a cigar. There may be a very light but social context to a thing where the player characters must invade something or go into the proverbial dungeon, but the monsters down there are like, I know why you're here, but why don't we just relax a little bit over a drink, maybe a smoke, maybe a book. We'll talk about this and yeah. JP, what's going on there? Hey, long time. Says, oh yeah, we're jumping on the booze train, going to hangover town. Yeah, we haven't talked about hangovers yet. Ugh. Heck, I wonder how many more uh, um, hangover curatives are sold in how many more multiples of hangover curatives are sold over healing potions. I don't know. I think they'd be uh, given the right price. They probably sell what, probably 100 to 1, 50 to 1, or something. You're like, hey, I'm not too worried about a broken leg, but I get hung over every weekend, so yeah. Yeah, lesser and greater restoration are your friend. Yep. Oh, the prefix, yes, the prefix. Yep. Just cast protection from hangover. Is that a thing? I guess somebody has to come up with it, right? Um, Although I don't know. I suppose do fey creatures get hangovers? I would hope so. Yeah, yeah. Your boss might cast detect hangover though. Keep an eye out for that. Oh man, just a whole brand new set of like alcoholically themed spells. Pretty fun. That'd be pretty fun. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, is that a cantrip or a level 9 spell? I'm sure it's hotly debated. Which one is it? Oh man. Yep, that's pretty fun. Protection from hangover. Yep. Oh man. Now, okay. Tomorrow, of course, we're going to talk about this, but I think it's a good idea to talk about it in a sci-fi setting as well. I mean, the classic we've landed, pour a drink because of and success and stuff like that is so big and common in science fiction, even from modern day all the way into science fiction. And I thought we could talk about that as well. Smite hangover, yeah, just cast smite hangover. It's just loud noises and bright lights. So black dragons don't breathe out acid; they just breathe out a whole lot of alcohol. There's a bunch of people trying to. They're like, "Don't run from it. Get underneath the black dragon's breath and just swallow." Ooh, that's a nasty thought, but but yeah, he's regurgitating. Swallow it up. Mm-mm-mm. Kind of weird. All right, guys, come on. We could go on and on with this kind of stuff, but I love it anyway. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. Of course, tomorrow is Future Friday. We're going to talk about the traditions of drinks and alcohol and science fiction and of course you're going to have like hydroponics gardens and people stashing away their favorite drink on their way to alien worlds and having those same traditions with aliens and things like that. So we're going to talk about that and science fiction and all that kind of business. And of course, next week, I hope enough people have had enough opportunity to see the movie Eternals, the latest Marvel um, split, Rotten Tomatoes split Marvel. Wow, I love the movie just as a thing, but I think we could steal a lot from it too. So yep. Yeah, you're fine, Z. You are perfectly fine. It's like, I will watch and leave a comment down below. You got it. I actually see the comments even when it goes off the air, although I'm not sure if you're still able to post something, how long it does, but I actually get to see that. Ricker says, "Oh, depends on when it hits Disney Plus." I don't know. I think they've lowered it to 45 days minimum. So I'm not sure. You know what? Let me take a look. When will Eternals and just popped up. If Eternals has the same timeline, that would mean it will launch with Disney Plus on January 14th. if it does. The 45-day window ends on Sunday, December 19, which means that the earliest Eternals could land on Disney Plus's Monday, December 20. And that's DigiSpy. CNET says that means we could expect Eternals to hit Disney Plus around December 20th. That's a Monday, so it'll probably come the following Friday or Saturday. And that's on CNET. Hmm. And that would be the earliest. They don't have to release the movie in 45 days. They just have the ability to do so. So I'm not certain. Yeah, Rickard says in that case, I won't see it for a while yet. Shit. Mm, there's still a way to talk about it without releasing details of it, but the with giving no spoilers away, the simplest one line review I can give of the movie is that it is a ensemble movie with a dozen factors that talks about very heady concepts, like an indie film wrapped in a superhero movie. And I love the movie, but I completely understand why people don't, because if any of those factors you love means that one of those other factors you don't like happens in the movie, then it ruins it for you. And I can see people doing that. Like if you are a person who loves a movie that makes you think about big, heady, cosmic concepts, and this damn superhero movie got in the way of that, I can see you hating it. If you're a person who loves bombastic action with superhero movies and they keep stopping to have talks about cosmic responsibility, I could see you hating that as well. And when you have an ensemble movie, the characters you love may not have as much airtime as the characters you don't like. And the characters you don't like are intruding on the characters you do like when you have a large ensemble movie with a number of characters all interacting with each other. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with the movie. And I like the movie. I almost Most people are the people who have loved it or even have the comment that, man, this would have made a better series. And I kind of agree. I normally don't agree. I'm like, I don't care if it's a show or a movie. This case, yeah, I agree with it. So anyway, guys, I've got to get out of this place. Don't if I ever get back. Hopefully I'll be able to. I didn't do it last week. Sometimes I do pre-recorded stuff talking about um Level Up Fifth Edition. There's a Discord server for Level Up. Over at End World, there's a bunch of Level Up Advanced Fifth Edition forums and different aspects of it. It's 1,500, 1,600 pages worth of material. So there's a lot to go through. It's pretty interesting, and people are analyzing the intricacies of it. The PDFs were released, but there's lots of like little indexing and formatting and wording issues to get everything on the same page that happened. And people are pretty gonzo about it. And I think I'm probably one of the few people. Hey, GP. Hey guys, have a great one. I'm glad some of you could be here. I know many of you are overseas, but those of us here in the states or state side of the time zone, it's pretty damn early. So I'm glad you guys can make it. Guys, have a great one. I I will see thee later. Please